Just
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's.
there. I think we also have. He was just saying. Start. Maybe over there. You got the right one last. Beautiful, yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Hey, how are you?
So you can, because I don't want you walking around like a liar. So.
Here I am.
It's like it's not or.
And so you're.
Yeah. If I forget. But I'll have them right here. Yeah, okay, right there. Yeah, it's kind of right. Right, that's not just.
And then this is. Should we? No, I'm wrong. Now, let me ask you this, the second, is that the brown? When I first moved to London and bought my car, it was that brown, and I think that's the building. Oh, it's okay. Oh, you know what? I'm looking on them, because that's the east side stuff.
Yeah.
I think the west side is 71.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, that's.
Yes. The date there. Seems like a. I'm like. Let's go.
But they just were at their space. Oh, that's excellent. I said.
Because
Yeah.
okay, because they're on board. That's.
Sure.
Each.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
Doesn't, where do you
Go ahead and stay.
where you undergrad?
I worked for the city of Delaware for years.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, wow. Maybe down here for like down.
I'm from.
Okay. Where'd you go to next one? No. Many boys, like sports for West Down. So we cross country and drag, we all, there's 20, we didn't count. Yeah, here it comes.
Real funny.
fun birthdays. I like Berkman. Even though those are like my kids. It is now.
Thank
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's a magic 8 ball. All signs.
Was bad. I mean, I just lost. That's surprising.
Amanda, so
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I saw right.
Yeah, it's a big share. Yeah, pretty good share.
You're holding something.
Yeah, sure.
Traditional and those
She wasn't.
it's all it's such a form of life. That makes sense. Okay, so August. Oh, it's really tough.
The opposite.
That's like my office.
Yeah. Right. Chair will be ready. It's 60.
All right, Amanda's here now, okay. Okay, I'd like to call the February 8th, 2024 Development Commission meeting to order with the, as we usually do, the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, case number one, Z 23-043, 1884 Genessee Avenue.
In your supplemental packet, that's, 184 Genessee Avenue, your supplemental packet, you'll see a revised site plan. That has pedestrian access has been changed to the corner of Genessee and George Avenue. Also, the CBD text has been updated with minor wording addressing screening along those avenues. The site consists of two parcels developed with a parking lot in the R4 residential district. The requested CBD commercial plan development district will conform to the existing parking lot, which will be off-site parking exclusively for the use located at 1889 Genessee Avenue. To the north of the site is a single-unit dwelling in the R3 residential district. To the south is a religious facility in the R4 residential district. To the east is a single-unit dwelling in the R4 residential district. To the west is a single-unit dwelling in the R4 residential district. The site is located within the planning boundaries of the northeast area plan, which recommends low-density residential land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northeast Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The CPD text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards that address parking setbacks, vehicular access, landscaping and screening, graphics and signage, and includes a commitment to maintain the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. Code modifications to interior parking lot trees, parking setbacks, and vision clearance are included in the text. City Department's recommendation was for approval. The requested CBD commercial plan development district will allow the site to continue to be used as a parking lot for the adjacent religious facility. CBD text establishes appropriate use restriction supplement development standards and includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. Although the proposal is not consistent with the Northeast Area Plan, which recommends low density residential land uses at this location, staff notes that the parking lot is existing and is associated with an institutional use and is therefore supportive of the use. Submitted site plan demonstrates 4 additional street trees along Joyce Avenue and commitments to provide headlight screening of 3 feet in height along both Joyce and Genessee Avenues. Both contribute to a site design that is consistent with the plan's design standards.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
The updated site plan no longer has a crosswalk on it. Is the assumption that it's just gonna take place at the corner? It's not, there doesn't seem to be striping.
Right. Dan, you have a comment or Dave?
Sure, either one of us.
So the site plan showed a striped crosswalk that was 80 feet from existing legal crossing. We met internally with traffic management and directed the applicant to revise the site plan so that the break and the fence is closer to the intersection of Joyce and Genessee where the legal crossing is.
So no mid block, it'd just be a big.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any other traffic comments?
No other traffic comments.
Okay. Kathy, any recreation parks?
Our comments have been included, thank you.
Okay, Chris?
No further comments from planning.
Okay, is anyone here to speak regarding case number 1, Genessee Avenue? David?
Yep, thank you, Development Commission. My name is Dave Perry. I'm here as the agent for Genessee Avenue Church of Christ. The request is as stated for CPD district for the parking lot which is existing. Through my checking historical aerial photography, it's been there in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 years. And on your question about access, the access is mid-block now. It's functioned fine, but traffic management asked for it to be moved. And the corner already has ramps installed anyway, so it makes sense to put it at the corner. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Do we need a motion to update? Okay, the date of the text is today's date, February 8th. And to my reading, the date of the site plan is January 29th. Is that
Just 9.
January 9th? Okay.
February.
February.
So that's
Tomorrow.
February 9th. February 9th.
Or 8, sorry, February 8th.
All right, so they're both February eighth.
It's the,
We're not in New Zealand.
they're both February 8th. Yeah.
Okay, both are, then Janice has made a motion to approve the text.
Second.
So all those in favor? Okay. Need a motion to vote.
Motion to vote?
Janice. Second?
Second.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor of voting, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, please call the roll.
Genessee Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
Pam Woodward,
Yes.
David Carey. Yes. Eric Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you're approved.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Case number 2, Z23-069, 697 East Broad Street.
Please see your supplemental packet for revised CBD text and site plan dated February 6th and January 29th respectively. 0.77 acre site consists of 5 parcels developed with an office building and parking in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District, which allows C2 commercial uses. The requested CPD district updates those permitted uses to a limited number of C4 uses in conformance with the existing site conditions. North of the site are offices in the ARO Apartment Office District. South of the site is an apartment building in the ARLT Apartment Residential District. East of the site is an eating and drinking establishment in the ARO Apartment Office District. And west of the site is right of way for I-70. The site is within the Near East Area Plan, which recommends high density residential mixed use development land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Near East Area Commission. The recommendation is for approval. The CBD text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards addressing building height, building and parking setbacks, required parking and living spaces, vision clearance, and includes a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. Code modifications to building and parking setbacks, required parking and loading spaces, and vision clearance are included in the text. The proposed CPD Commercial Plan Development District will update the permitted uses to include a limited number of C4 uses while also conforming the site's existing provisions. The CPD text includes appropriate use restrictions and supplemental development standards. The permitted uses are consistent with the Near East Area Plan's recommendation for higher density residential and mixed use development. Additionally, the included code modification will conform the existing site conditions. The Department of Public Service has the following unresolved issues. The site plan does not show proposed reduction in loading space dimension, and staff had questions regarding the accuracy of the aisle width measurement. However, with the updated site plan in your supplemental text, those issues have been resolved, and city departments are recommendation is for approval.
Okay, questions or comments? Dan, traffic issues?
Nothing to add to the staff report.
Kathy?
No comments.
Planning, Chris?
No further comments.
Okay, is anyone here to speak regarding case number 2, East Broad Street? I see no hands. Anyone want to add to the staff report?
Yes, please. My name is Eric Zartman. I represent the applicant and owner. I just want to reiterate that the site is already developed with an approximately 20,000 square foot building, and the whole purpose of this application is to increase the permitted uses from C2 uses to C4. As Tim indicated, the site plan is reflective of the on-site conditions now since the last CPD rezoning about 20 years ago. Most significantly, right-of-way dedication for the interstate ramp in Elijah Pierce Way. We worked with the area commission to include some restricted uses and worked with Mr. Moorhead with the traffic department to resolve comments there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, I think everything's in order. I need a motion to confirm the text dated 2/6/24 and a site plan dated 1/29/24.
So we.
Second? Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now a motion to vote.
Motion to move?
Same second, okay, voice vote, all in favor, say yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, please call the roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Amanda Golden,
Yes.
Pam Woodward,
Yes.
Dave Carey. Yes. Genessee Shanklin,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick?
Yes, you're approved.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, case number 3. Z23-011-5357 Cleveland Avenue.
The site consists of one parcel developed with a dwelling unit converted to an office in the I institutional district. The requested CPD commercial plan development district will allow limited commercial uses. To the north of the site is an apartment complex in the ARLD apartment residential district. To the south is a retail store in the LC2 limited commercial districts. To the east is a grocery store in the neighborhood commercial district and a single unit dwelling in the suburban office district in the Never Park. To the west is an office use in the I institutional district. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Northland 1 area plan, which recommends office land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northland Community Council. This recommendation is for this disapproval. The CPD text includes use restrictions and supplemental development standards that address vehicular access, right-of-way, landscaping and screening, graphics and signage, and includes a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. A code modification to reduce parking width is included in the text. The Columbus Multimodal Thoroughfare Plan identifies this portion of Cleveland Avenue as a suburban commuter corridor requiring 120 feet of right-of-way. The requested CBD commercial plan development district will allow the site to be redeveloped for commercial uses, including a car wash. The CBD text establishes appropriate use restrictions and supplemental development standards and includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. Although the proposal is not consistent with the Northland 1 area plan's recommendation for office uses at this location, planning staff recognizes the surrounding development pattern includes commercial uses and that the proposal reuses an existing contributing structure. Submitted site plan is consistent with the plan's recommendations for landscaping, sidewalks, and street trees. City staff is in support of the proposed CPD district and the proposed uses. However, zoning staff requires a CPD text that addresses edits and comments from staff to be submitted for further review. Additionally, the Division of Traffic Management requires a resolution to the right-of-way dedication exception before proceeding to City Council, and has further comments regarding the proposed sidewalk along Teakwood Drive and accuracy of dimensions listed on the site plan. Lastly, traffic management does not support the proposed code modification for aisle width in the CPD text, unless a recorded easement with the property owner to the west. All of these comments have been addressed. Once these comments have been addressed, staff can full approval. So therefore, the City Park's recommendation is for conditional approval.
So you have not been satisfied in those additional documents?
Correct. It's been, we haven't received any updated CPD text or site plan, and we've, Dan and I have discussed with Nova over the past couple of weeks to try to get these materials, and they have not.
Okay, it puts us in a difficult spot. Anybody else have any comments? I know Dave Paul's here. I'd like to have Dave Paul come in and put his statement in first, unless you've got something you want to add to the staff's report.
I do.
Okay, please.
My name is Melba Williams Hargow. I'm representing the applicant and property owner. We have acknowledged the conditions and my client, the applicant owner, agrees to them. We've modified the site plan. I actually have a hard copy, kind of old-fashioned delivery system here. We do have revised the site plan to increase the sidewalks north of Teakwood to 10 feet to be congruent with the development standards. My client agrees to approach the property owner to the west for a recorded easement. That was a new stipulation that we've only received in the past couple of weeks, so we do not have that in place currently, but he has agreed to provide an easement and have recorded. The other conditions regarding the right-of-way dedication, we've modified the site plan to show to illustrate the amount of right-of-way that traffic management required for the site plan. And the other issues regarding kind of graphics, graphic representation of the property to the right-of-way and dimensions have been revised. And I have a copy of the site plan with me. With the text for the CPD, I have a copy of that as well. Also, we have asked for an affidavit to update because we had submitted the notarized affidavits, but they had expired. And this application has been in process for over a year. So when we got notification that we need to have this updated, we'll submit notarized affidavit as well.
All right, there's like 3 or 4 subjects where you're going to do something or you will do something later. And I don't think there's any real excuse for not having it already done. We normally don't operate on, you put something together later and you'll send it in and we never get benefit of knowing that when we cast a vote. So normally you would be tabled. Let me ask Dave Paul, the representative of the neighborhood group, come up and make his comments and then we'll get back and see where we go from here. Dave, you can just move the microphone over.
All right, sir, thank you. Bear with me here, little respiratory fun going on. Thank you.
Let's go puberty.
There you go. A little past that. My name is Dave Paul. I co-chair the Northland Meeting Council Development Committee. We met with Ms. Williams-Parga and her client back in February of last year, February 26th, I believe it was. And at that time, we were considering an application to rezone this property to February 22nd, to C4 uses, specifically a used automobile lot, and I think a car wash was also anticipated at that point. Our committee discussed the case with the applicant. We were not supportive, in part because the C4 unrestricted zoning does not make any provision for the uses that our committee regularly does not support. And so we encourage the applicant to find another solution to that. It also seemed to us, as we mentioned to the applicant at the time, that this, our Northland Area 1 plan does anticipate that this location for office uses. It is surrounded with residential and institutional uses. There are some commercial uses. There's one across the street in Minerva Park. But this area generally has been developed as a residential area. It's part of the Forest Park neighborhood where I live. The applicant came back in April 26th. At that time, they presented a CPD application, which did add some restrictions in terms of uses that our committee does not support. However, our committee still recommends disapproval of this application, did do so on April 26, 2023. And if it's all right, I'll quickly just read our comments in our report because frankly, it'll remind me exactly why we recommended disapproval. The committee found that the proposed CPD district permitting a used automobile dealership and or other C4 uses conflicts with the future land use recommendations of Northland 1 area plan at this site for office uses and is not an appropriate transitional use between the institutional and residential uses adjacent to the site. The committee did not feel that the planning division's proposal that the applicant install street trees mitigated this incompatibility. The committee also felt that the proposed site plan did not provide for proper circulation of traffic and maneuvering within the site without using currently accessible portions of the adjoining parcel not owned by the applicant. I did note that the applicant's representative proposes to address that with an easement on the adjoining site, I believe. But we are still concerned not only about the use being quite intense at this particular location, but also access to Cleveland Avenue. This is a fairly major intersection for residential properties nearby, including a large apartment community that in effect surrounds this site. and goes significantly to the east. And that traffic will be impacted at what is already a fairly dangerous intersection. It is signalized, but it regularly does back up. So again, our committee unanimously recommended disapproval of this application. The vote actually was presented by Forest Park, which is the neighborhood that immediately surrounds this property.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments regarding where this project stands? In my opinion, there's too many loose ends. It's too vague. And City of Columbus doesn't operate on promises and verbal agreements to catch up later. So I think you have an appropriate use if you pin down those loose edges and come up with the documents that go in the file and they're used as a record and not just somebody talking to you on the phone. So I would recommend that you, are you the planner that you get a hold of your planner, include David in where you stand with these recommendations. We really depend on these neighborhood commissions for what we do in our process to evaluate a project that is appropriate or not appropriate. You're not far from the goal line, but you're not where you need to be for a hearing tonight. So I would call for a motion to table this so that these details can be worked out. Are you all right with that?
I would request the table.
You would, okay, she's requesting the table. All right, I need a motion to accept the table. Yes, sir.
Just a question. How, Mr. Dale just mentioned about the traffic and the major intersection of the potential for accidents. I also suggest maybe the next site plan you're going to provide, if you can show some stacking of cars. So we see in relation to what you just discussed, we can have an idea how those cars are stacking up at that intersection.
That's pretty normal in the site plan for any car wash.
Yes.
You know, how many cars can you line up? How do they move through your building?
Well, this is for a used auto dealership, not a car wash.
And the car wash.
All right, so that takes that up to
That makes sense.
All right, so if you clean up those unsure conditions, I think you can make some progress. Dave's got some other things, the traffic issues that you'll need to collaborate on.
Chair.
Yes.
I also just wanted to say that was kind of part of zoning's issues with the CPD text, because right now it does say that the car wash is a permitted use of the site, so there are outstanding issues that we would like to work with you, so that we get this to where it needs to be.
See the guy in the blue shirt? He's telling it like it is. So clean up those loose edges, and then we can make a clean decision, and you can go forward and accomplish your goals.
Thank you.
So we'll
Okay.
table.
Move to table, second. All those in favor? Okay, you are tabled until next time we can. Okay. Case number 4. Z23-065, 4747 Dublin Road.
Please see your supplemental packet for the recommendation from the Hidden Road Investment Association, as well as 84 opposition letters I received in the last couple of weeks. The 14.71 acre site consists of 6 parcels, 4 of which are in the R Rural District and the other 2 in the PUD8 Planned Unit Development District. 3 parcels are developed with single unit dwellings, and the other 3 are currently developed. The requested LARLD Limited Apartment Residential District will allow for the development of a 220 unit apartment complex as demonstrated on the submitted site plans. North of the site are single unit dwellings in the R Rural District in Norwich Township. South and west of the site are single unit dwellings in the PUD8 Planned Unit Development District. East of the site are single-unit dwellings in the RR Rural Residential District in Hilliard. The site is located within a quarter mile of multi-unit condos in the same PUD 8 planned unit development district south of the site that abuts the subject site. Within a half mile of multifamily condos in the LARLD limited apartment residential district to the west, and within 3/4 of a mile of a multi-unit residential apartment complex in the LAR1 apartment residential district also to the west. Concurrent CV 23-132 has been filed to reduce building lines and increase building height. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. There is no council adopted land use recommendations at this location. However, the site is subject to Congress citywide planning policies, design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Hayden Run West Civic Association, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The limitation text includes use restrictions limiting the maximum number of total units to 220, and supplemental development standards that address setbacks, access, landscaping and screening, and building design. The request includes a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plans and building regulations. Additionally, the request includes traffic commitments as requested by the City of Hilliard. The requested LARLD limited apartment residential district will allow the site to be developed with a 220 unit apartment complex. Limitation text includes appropriate supplemental development standards and a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plans and building elevations. While there is no council adopted land use recommendation at this location, proposal demonstrates landscaping around the sides and rear of detached garages and supplemental trees and adjacent open spaces, existing tree preservation, all of which are consistent with Columbus citywide planning policies, design guidelines. Therefore, the city department's recommendation is for approval.
Okay, any questions or comments?
When you align a fourth leg to an intersection, that does affect the capacity at an existing T intersection. And so, throughout Hilliard, they're able to set up their developments with offset intersections that are separated enough that your left turns are able to make that work.
You know what that separation is?
Not.
All right. All right, Kathy?
Our comments have been included.
Here, okay, Chris?
No further comments, but ready to answer any questions.
Okay, the applicant is here. Do we have any speakers tonight? Okay, do you have an area or a neighborhood commission?
We have a neighborhood organization.
Okay,
Is anyone?
Civic Association.
Hayden Run Civic Association.
They can speak separately as well.
All right. Hayden Run Civic Association speak separately. These are the same rural city council units. We abide by the same situation. 3 additional speakers, 3 minutes each. Try not to be redundant. We're very good at picking up on issues. And then we'll bring the applicant back up. Now, before we hear from the neighborhood commission, Sean, do you have anything you want to add to the staff's presentation?
I do not. I'm sure there will be a number of questions after the Civic Association and the neighbors. We did just get the Civic Association's report this week, so I'm ready to address the components that they mentioned in there, but I'll let them point them out. Relative to traffic and your question for Dan, we set up those access points based on what Hilliard told us how they told us to set them. So
Like the ODOT, air traffic control didn't get into it.
our traffic engineer is here as well.
Okay, let's hear from our speakers and then we'll bring them back to the table. You're first.
Good evening. I'm Mike Brown. I'm here representing the Hayden Run West Civic Association. We prepared a recommendation form that should be in your packet information. I was going to just read through that. Is that appropriate or is that fine?
Any way you want to make your points, you've got about 3 minutes to
Okay.
hit the high notes.
The site is currently zoned rural district and the developer is asking to rezone it to limited apartment residential district. Can you hear me okay?
You put that pretty close to its directional.
The area in question is approximately 4.7 acres to be built with 2 and 3 story apartment.
4 or 14?
Sorry?
4 acres or 14?
14.7. That would constitute 220 dwelling units, resulting in a density of about 14.96 units per acre. This would be a high-density housing development. The area is in the middle of multiple single-family home neighborhoods where the density is about 2.3 units per acre. This proposed development does not fit in with the surrounding homes. An apartment complex dropped into the middle of these existing neighborhoods would be a stark departure from the existing land use. This constitutes an example of spot zoning, an arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable treatment of a limited parcel of land via rezone. This would be a detriment to the general land use plan and an unjustified special treatment benefiting only one owner, the Rock Run developer. In contrast, there are many other residential apartment areas in this part of town where the apartments are close to public transit, shopping, access to freeways. This particular area is not very close to any of those things. There are issues with parking. The developer proposes 220 units with 335 parking spaces. This 330 spaces are required by the city as a minimum standard. 1.5 spaces per apartment will not be close to what is needed for that many units. Current residents in that area feel that the 335 spaces is not adequate, resulting in apartment residents parking on streets in the adjacent neighborhoods. Sidewalks. There are no sidewalks on Dublin Road, as well as there is no public transit going up and down Dublin Road. Stormwater is a problem. Stormwater in this area has run off into a creek where there is no retention pond in the plan. The plan is to have underground tanks under the parking areas, but there is much bedrock under this particular site. Existing stormwater drains in the area existing stormwater drains in this site required blasting out rock to install. Traffic. The residents are concerned with traffic being added to Dublin Road, which is already heavy during rush hours. Backups are already a problem trying to turn left onto Dublin Road from the existing neighborhoods. The developers see no issues with traffic. I just received a copy of the traffic assessment report yesterday. I had no time to read that since it only arrived yesterday. Based on the problems inherent to the proposed rezoning and many other issues, the Hayden Run West Civic Association recommends that the rezoning application be disapproved by the Columbus Development Commission.
Okay, thank you for your input. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, let's have our next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hunt. Before I get started, there were some folders that were provided to staff earlier this evening. If those could be distributed and admitted to the record, oh, great. Thank you. So good evening. My name is Brian Hunt, and I'm appearing as legal counsel for the Scioto Property Owners Collective, commonly known as SPOC. SPOC is a group that was formed to represent the many residents and different local interests around this development. And it is opposed to the current application for, among other things, the following 3 reasons. First, this application runs afoul of the very purposes of rezoning. Zoning is an exercise of the police power, and as such, it must benefit the health, safety, and welfare of the community. So far with this application, no facts have been presented that this rezoning will promote the health, safety, or welfare of the city. While a common theme these days is that Columbus needs more housing, this commission should know that there are currently hundreds of apartments available to rent in this area, whereas there are only a very limited number of single-family homes listed for sale. So with hundreds of apartment units available to rent and a very limited supply of single-family housing, is this high density and intense development something the city truly needs? And in what way does it actually promote the health, safety, or welfare of its citizens? SPOC also opposes this application because it will result in unlawful spot zoning. Spot zoning occurs when a small area is singled out for discriminatory or different treatment from surrounding land that is similar in character. And that is present here for several reasons. First, a high-density multifamily development on this site is not consistent with the comprehensive zoning scheme and neighborhood characteristics that have existed in the area for decades. The immediate area has always consisted of a single-family dwelling on individual lots, and as you will hear, the closest multifamily use is located along a busy corridor and previously required much greater limitations in order to be approved. To reiterate, this project does not fit here. Second, there is simply no Columbus plan or authority which supports this application. In fact, this application violates the most germane criteria of the best guidance available, the C2P design guidelines. Taking all those points into consideration, making a recommendation of approval would be arbitrary and amount to endorsing an unconstitutional decision to spot zone this property. Finally, even if this application does not rise to the level of spot zoning, the negative impact it will have on the surrounding area should lead to a recommendation of disapproval. Specifically, you should take into account the negative consequences this project will have on owners in the area who purchased the property and built their homes, relying upon the single-family residential character in this thoroughfare. Aesthetics should also be given consideration as courts have recognized that the appearance of a community is closely linked to its citizens' happiness, comfort, and general well-being. I would also ask that you keep in mind all that has occurred to this point and what continues to be sought in order to make this project feasible, which includes annexation from the Norwich Township, rezoning from single-family use to apartment, and several variance requests. With this area historically having been single-family homes, no one could have reasonably foreseen that this sort of development was ever a possibility, which, by the way, lends to the clearly arbitrary nature of any decision to allow this to proceed. For these reasons, we request that you follow the unanimous recommendation of the Hayden Run West Civic Association and recommend against approving this application as it is before you this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments of the speaker? Okay, next speaker, please.
Good evening, members of the Development Commission. My name is Holly Hollingsworth. At the start of my comments in opposition, I'd like to quickly ask if all those who are here in opposition to this application, please raise your hands. Thank you. My home of 24 years sits 200 feet from what would be a textbook illustration of spot zoning if you approve this application. I'm also president of Scioto Property Owners Collective. Here are a couple of our group's neighborhood meetings last year and last month. We weren't giving anything away at these meetings. All these people and more gathered to unanimously oppose the proposal in front of you. According to Anderson's American Law of Zoning, the 4th edition, the classic definition of spot zoning is, quote, the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of the owner of such property and to the detriment of other owners. As you can see in front of you and in your blue packet, the applicant site, as we've heard, is bounded 100% by single-family residential. The surrounding 432 acres has an average density of 2.3 long-established dwelling units per acre. Applicant wants more than 6.5 times that in his parcel in the middle in red. There are not only no multifamily structures in this entire surrounding area, many of these 995 units are single story. Some are two-story, nothing like the three-story monstrosity you're being asked to inflict on us. That's not to say that there's a lack of multifamily just beyond our community. You'll find more than a dozen. See all the green dots there on that graphic? That's them. All of these multifamily apartment complexes and corridors with multiple lanes of traffic in each direction, sidewalks along transportation routes with on-street parking available. The applicant's parcel is on a road with one lane each way, no sidewalks, no public transportation, no on-street parking to make up for his less than 2 spaces per unit. And by the way, those green dots, as Mr. Hunt mentioned, offer thousands of units and hundreds of current vacancies. On the top, here's our community. Homes on parcels next to the applicants have 100-foot setbacks, 200-foot setbacks, and more. Not 3-story buildings, unlike anything in the area, with 35-foot setback from the road. On the staff report prepared for today, city departments recommend approval, saying some landscaping around the garages and little open space are consistent with C2P2. Well, congratulations, city departments. You found the only way to claim any consistency with C2P2. Here are all the ways that this applicant's project is inconsistent with C2P2. This is in your packet as well. It's not in a primary corridor with access to transit. Higher stories are not set back. In fact, he wants it closer than the rezoning even calls for. His plan does not mitigate impact on adjacent uses. And in terms of natural resource preservation and buffers, take a look at the mature trees, all of them you see on the image in the left, and what he wants to leave us with on the right. There are 2 tributary waterways on applicant's parcel that are less than 1,500 feet from their confluence with the Scioto River. They flow immediately through dozens of single-family residential properties downstream, posing risk for damages from insufficient water runoff remediation that would be impossible to correct through destruction. Here's a precedent, also a rural to limited apartment residential district rezoning. Coming up next, my neighbor's going to outline this body, your body's disapproval of that one, a mile away. That one less dense than the one you're being deciding today, and only 50% bounded by single family, not 100% like the one you're thinking of and considering today. Yet in that precedent case, density was considered, quote, too high in consideration of adjacent single family uses. Member comments from your body, too dense, buffering, not enough. High density intrudes into the existing single family, too dense for surrounding neighborhoods. I ask that you base your decision on information and facts that the city departments conveniently overlook. Our neighbors asked applicant's team, why would you not build at a density compatible with the area? If you did, you would have plenty of room for adequate buffering. No, they said, these guys are apartment developers. Oh, okay. So how many have they done? Oh, none. None, not yet. This would be their first. These are the facts. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have one more speaker.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. In an effort not to be repetitive, some of this will summarize what you've heard. But my name is Kyle Miller. I am a City of Columbus resident adjacent to this property. I also speak tonight in front of you as serving other roles. I'm the Vice President of the Scioto Property Owners Collective. I'm actually a practicing architect with multifamily development experience that understands the need and to develop a site appropriately and respond to its context. I'm actually a father. Sorry about that, but I'm so proud of her for saying that. The 3-year-old daughter, she'll grow up in our backyard that will be less than 30 feet from this property. I want to refer to 30 feet in a moment, so keep that in mind. But I am a Columbus resident. I understand the difficult future this Columbus region is facing. We have a lot of development and we are not against growth. And I look at these as an architect and think we do need to increase greater than the current rural 5 acres to 1 unit density. But this is too much. The density proposed and whatever needs to be proposed needs to be done through thoughtfulness and respect for all of the property owners and on all 4 sides this is surrounded. I want to highlight the developers included a limited overlay request in their rezoning application and as such acknowledged that this Dublin Road development requires, and I'm going to quote directly from the code because they said it best, an alternative response to those situations where the minimum development standards of an underlying zoning district are deemed inadequate to protect or maintain compatibility of land uses. This developer is not only trying not to stick to the minimum requirements, but is seeking council variances, which you're not considering, to further reduce minimum requirements of this area. This is contradictory to the limited overlay in which they are proposing. My neighbor and colleague here, she mentioned the Brittany Place apartments. In city staff's analysis, they did highlight there are denser developments around. I do disagree that there is consistency on this site with those for many reasons, as you've heard. But Brittany Place is the one I'd like to point a direct finger at and highlight. This is a direct precedent study of actions previously taken in this area to address high-density development adjacent to single-family properties. Single-family properties, in this case, that are in the exact same neighborhood that this property will abut in the city of Columbus. That was unanimously, and I want to emphasize, unanimously disapproved when proposed at 14.1 units per acre, which is less than the current proposed, because it was incompatible, as Holly had mentioned. The development without additional restrictions, and this is quoting as well, did not allow for a sufficient transition to the adjacent single-family uses, and at a minimum, at an absolute minimum, the proposed development should be held to the exact same restrictions that were proposed for the Brittany Place apartments. Without taking up too much of your time, that is in your packet, that zoning approval, if you'd like to reference those individual ones. I would like to respect the 3 minutes I have to speak. I understand, as I mentioned, the unprecedented growth this region is facing, and I, along with the hundreds of neighbors, support an increase in density to the site. We know this site can't remain exactly as it is. However, this increase needs to be done in a responsible, compatible, and appropriate manner within the context of the existing neighborhoods. The development as proposed is a singular proposal that does not align with any future planning for the city. That a proposed development is not on a high-density corridor with access to public transit. It is not on a corridor with direct access to grocery stores or even a public sidewalk to get off of this site. There are no plans on Dublin Road to continue a pattern of increased multifamily development such as the proposed. On all 4 sides, this property is surrounded by low-density single-family. A higher development site such as this is landlocked and completely inappropriate, not only for its incompatibility with the surrounding density, but for its lack of connectivity to public infrastructure that will isolate any pedestrian that ends up living in this development if approved. For these reasons, the requested spot zoning will only benefit the property developer at the expense of the surrounding community and cannot be recommended for approval. As an architect, a neighbor, and most importantly, a father, working to ensure the best possible future for his daughter, 30 feet away from potential blasting of rock for underground storm structures. My basement had to be blasted. My neighbor's basement had to be blasted. I'm making an educated assumption here. Please do not let this commission, or I urge this commission, do not let the city's need for density be an allowable excuse now or in the future for just bad development. Listen to the hundreds of neighbors, the Norwich Township trustees, which this property was a part of Norwich Township until recently when it was annexed, and the Hayden Run West Civic Association, who have all unanimously voted their opposition to this development. And please do not recommend this for approval tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? Okay, Sean, let's go back up to the microphone. You've heard it pretty strong. I don't think in my 30 years of activity on this commission, I've had a stack of opposition like this. You've got some hills to climb. Give us your thoughts, please.
Sure, thank you.
But before we do that, let's hear from these 3 over here. They have traffic issues?
You already heard from me.
Okay, well, yeah. Parks?
We have no additional comments.
Okay, Sean?
Thank you, Chair Fitzpatrick, members of the Dublin Commission. First, I think I'll respond to the Civic Association comments. I'll do it in reverse order. On the traffic study, we got our traffic study approved by Hilliard last Thursday. I talked with Mr. Brown on Monday. emailed him the traffic study. And apparently it didn't go through based on size of file. When I got the report from the city that stated no traffic study on yesterday, I immediately called Mike, tried to resend it. I sent him one without it. We connected by emails. I got him the traffic study through a Dropbox link. So I tried to get that to him as soon as we got the approved study back from Hilliard with our commitments as well. On the parking issue, he raised the concern that 335 spaces is not adequate. We feel parking within this site is more than adequate. We meet the city code. I know that that may soon be a thing in the past, but we meet city code. We actually exceed it by a few spaces. Many of our units are our transition from the single family is surrounding townhomes, 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes with attached garages. So that's our kind of transition point on the west and the north. There was a comment in there that those spaces are typically used by renters as storage. We don't think that that's going to cause an issue. There was also concern that residents of the development would park on surrounding city streets. We just don't think there is any concern from a parking perspective, nor I think that the Department of Public Service. Sidewalks, that's come up a number of times. There are no sidewalks. So we're going to have internal sidewalks throughout the development. And one of our agreements, commitments to the city of Hilliard with the traffic study is that we would pay for an enhanced crosswalk with some traffic calming devices to connect to what Hilliard and Franklin County are building along Dublin Road, which is a multi-use path. So we will have connection to that once they build that, and we've committed to funding the costs for the build out of the crosswalk, any easements, any grading, anything. So that's part of our commitment, and we'll enter into that agreement with the Franklin County engineer. Relative to the stormwater issues and the runoff issues, we do not have a detention pond. We're maintaining all of the stormwater through underground storage. I've got my civil engineer here to talk in more detail and certainly with more expertise than I have relative to this, but we're complying with the Columbus stormwater requirements, which are relatively rigorous as compared to other stormwater requirements. So along the lines of the civic association issues that they raised, those are our responses to those 4 issues. I'm happy to take questions or elaborate on any of those responses.
As you formulated this concept on this piece of ground, this last piece of ground up in the area, I drove by there a day, by the way, and almost got run over by a bulldozer.
That is not us, by the way. That is that's
the concrete pipe.
That's a water, yeah, that's a water line.
You have a fairly narrow throat, and I'm very familiar with this new code that's coming out, the new zoning code. It's all based on corridors and getting density in corridors, such as High Street, Lane Avenue, Whittier, Morse Road. You can just visualize what a corridor is. How do you see this street as a corridor in terms of absorbing the kind of instant density that would come if this project went forward like you have it presented?
Well, I think part of it is that shared use path across the street in terms of access to, I mean, there's a code of bus stop right at Hayden Run and Dublin Road. I actually checked it before I came here to see it would take about an hour and 40 minutes to get here, but I could walk up to that stop and could have taken CODA to get here. So there is access and will be easier access once that shared use path is built out. I think the way and the uniqueness of the site, the way that we're transitioning with the townhomes, we don't have the townhomes transitioned on the southern side based on the stream corridor, the stream that is down there, the grading, it goes down. So it's not a direct kind of same grade backyard to backyard. The townhomes abutting the single family homes, we believe are matching up to, from a size, from an appearance standpoint, to a single family home in the other side of the backyard. We've built out, we've designed out, I think a pretty robust set of amenities for our potential occupants, residents. We've got a pool, we've got a volleyball court, a pickleball court, community garden. We've extended the green space, as you can see there in the center area. Based on the traffic study and the impact of additional traffic with the 220 units, we do feel that based on the proximity to get to Hayden Run across the river, and then Davidson to the west, that it will work.
My gut feeling from the very beginning when I first saw this was it's some good apartment units, and they're well executed with details, with dormers, and they have a human scale to them, but they're huge compared to what's there. And my thinking was this is a great project, but not in this exact location, because it is such an explosive step of contrast. And maybe there's a way to modify this to where it would have less of that explosive kind of connection. The fact that you need variances to go on a perfectly clean piece of property that you're just getting started with, it implies to myself and probably others on this commission that you're looking to just stretch. Every client I've ever had comes up and says, "Hey, Mike, here's my piece of property. Throw me up the most I can get on." So I start with a setback and an easement, and I come up with a layout. How's that look? No, I need more. So that's the way architects deal with clients. I don't know about lawyers, but that's the way architects start with clients. It appeared to me that that's where this thing was going, because it was such a robust, you used the word robust, it was such a robust stretch of the imagination that you could get all this done on this property. I currently, my office is in the short north and it's what used to be this Freewell Baptist Church. It was next to a parking lot that was used while the fireproof building was being modified, and there were 2 city standards of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. I've got a sweetheart deal where my people use that parking lot, the overflow parking lot. It was needed for that project to just satisfy the customers that paid rent there. So my people leave at 6 o'clock and come back in the morning, and we trade the parking spaces through the course of the days. So city code minimums work in certain places, and in some of those corridors that the city is pointed at, there's parking garages built into the structures, and there's a way to absorb some of the unknown parking peaks and valleys. There are no street spaces here, and you're going to have, who can live today on a 1 income kind of income? Almost everybody's got husband and wife, or 2 people living in the same place, both have a place to go. I don't feel that those situations have been dealt with. Maybe they can be dealt with in the future, but I am not convinced that this is the right thing to do in this location.
So a couple of responses to that. Relative to the variances, we're requesting a variance for a setback from the right of way because we've moved the project towards the Dublin Road to increase the setback for the neighbors to the west. The height variance is about 2 feet, and it's not for all of the buildings. Based on grade, it hits in 1 or 2 spots. We actually started out with a higher number of units. We've come down. So it's not everything we could fit on there. It's not everything we could squeeze in by code. We have come down. The pictures that Ms. Hollingsworth showed you of the neighborhood meetings, we were at those meetings. We've met with the neighbors, a couple hundred neighbors multiple times. We met with smaller groups multiple times. This project started out, I started getting calls and emails from neighbors when we first started to annex, when we first sent the notice for annexation, and I got the questions, what are you looking to do here? And I said multifamily with an affordability component, and 30% of this project will be at 80% AMI or less. So once that started to come up, I heard a lot of what you heard here tonight too, which is there's better places for that. Why don't look over on Sawmill, look over on Bethel? What about, I received an email earlier this week that the Walmart on South High was closing. Why don't we look at that as an ideal site? I mean, yes, there are sites all around the city where there are opportunities for multifamily developments, and we should build those too. I mean, we are going to explode in size. I think we've seen it from the policies enacted by the mayor and city council and the citywide CRA. I think we're seeing it from everything that the government is seeing come. And how are we going to address this? How are we going to address this increase? It's a great opportunity, but also presents a lot of challenges. So we believe that density is coming everywhere, and how you do it, I think, is important. I think that we've put together a quality product here. Materials are top notch. The design, while different, I mean, change is hard, change is challenging. I lived in this area in the early 90s. When I was just starting law school, I lived at the farms to start with. I couldn't afford to buy a house, but I could afford to pay rent. And from there, I actually moved into a house on one of the streets connecting to this, renting with 2 other friends. And it was great to not be next to 270. It was great to not be in the middle of a 4-lane highway. So providing this opportunity for people who have to rent, maybe can't pay the down payment or choose to rent, I think in a neighborhood setting is great. You've heard a couple of the opponents speak here. I've heard a lot more of this in other meetings that, this is going to hurt our neighborhood. This is going to damage our neighborhood. This is going to reduce our property values. There's no property values going down in central Ohio for the near future, that's for sure. That this is somehow going to negatively impact the area. I mean, I had conversations about, well, how does this density, you have concerns about density. What's the issue with traffic? We've been working with Hilliard on access. I received comments back, no crime. How are we going to address that? How are we going to address all of these people coming into the neighborhood? It's going to change our dynamic. It's going to change. You heard talk about aesthetics, our community, et cetera. I mean, I think that not only can this work, I think we're going to see more of these types of developments of different types of housing options within communities that aren't just single family homes for sale. And I don't think that's a bad thing, and hence our project here.
My response to that is I've been on this commission close to 30 years. I lost track. And we do have certain norms and precedents that we don't tell one person yes and the next person no, unless there's a real reason. Somebody's been on the record that Brittany Place was something that we rejected and voted no on, even at a lower density, because it was a clash of density. So that reluctance to just all of a sudden dive into the dark, that now we need density, is far run by the idea that you gotta do what you do right. You gotta do what you do well. And I think we're headed down the road here where this is so robust and so aggressive that it leaves very little room for it to turn out beneficial to anybody but people right in this complex. And it wouldn't be the case if it was in 80% of the other locations in Franklin County, Hilliard, Dublin, you name it. But on this strip close to the Scioto River, and we treasure what little wildlife and water environments that we have in this city. We have turned down applications near the broadcast pond over by Channel 6 because one parking spot ran over and trespassed onto the water. So we have a history of protecting, but we also listen and we also engage, and we very much depend on neighborhood commissions. We couldn't do what we do without them. We look to them to, they're in and amongst stakeholders here, and you've got everybody sitting in this room is a stakeholder, and they're all unanimously against this. So my opinion is that is not in a position, certainly speaking just for myself, it's not where I would want to vote yes for it. I've never voted yes for something like this yet. There are things you could do to tweak it. You can talk to Mike Shannon about what he did to get a really poor starter over the goal line on McNaughton Road not too long ago. He made a lot of changes, and they were significant changes that had their actual effect. And yes, he lost some density. But I don't yet feel that we're in a desperate emergency to jump out and throw our body on density right now. Maybe that day will come, maybe it will come soon, but I don't think we're on it yet. I think you've got a great product here, you've got a great architect. I'm sure your engineers know what they're dealing with in stormwater management. That's a finite number, and it goes through the Franklin County among other engineering services. And you need to accept the water from people higher than you and deal with that water as well as you. Everybody knows that.
We have all of that, we're actually going to, and I'm more than happy to bring up my civil engineer to talk in detail about that. We're actually going to reduce the runoff of an event. We're storing the water, and obviously we have to release that at a slower rate. So what's happening now is it's all washing off into the stream corridor down into the river. And what we're doing is holding it and releasing it at a much slower rate. So it
well, right now it's porous. Right now it soaks up the water like a sponge. When after construction, you're going to have impervious surfaces. They all work into a Q formula. And that Q is the quantity of water that has to be held and released at a slower rate. It's not magic. It's not something we can deal with because we have confidence that the jurisdictional engineers can look through that and make good things happen. You may even improve things after construction. And I think, I think back to like 2005, there was a similar situation where a small sliver of Columbus poked out between Hilliard and Dublin, and the city wanted to slap a zoning on that of some sort. And there was an uproar among Washington Township and City of Hilliard, Norwich Township, Dublin, and everybody stepped back a little bit, took a deep breath. And 2 years later, something called Pay As We Grow was enacted because there were consequences and there were impacts that a project makes. And I think you got a lot of explaining to do to get those things properly put into a detailed consideration, because this is such a reach. If you're zoning, somebody here already mentioned that they don't object to all developments, but you're knocking the lid off the can in the construction world, which is where I hailed from. We have a saying about 12 gallons of something in a 5-gallon bucket. And, it's an over an exaggeration, but I think you go back to your architects and you massage this a little bit, you might find a way to make this have an appeal that it lacks right now. That's just me.
I have
Anybody
a question. You mentioned some adjustments in the number of units. What were those? And I'm looking at the Civic Association comments and they say it's now 220 units.
Correct. We are at 220.
What was it originally?
So originally it was half the site. When we expanded it, that was at 80. We've gone up to, we were up to 256. We're down to 220 now.
256 with 4-story units, correct?
So I'm hearing some 4-story.
Yeah.
Was it 4 stories and you brought it down to 3?
Yeah.
Was that across the entire project or was that just a few buildings?
Well, the buildings that were at 4, we brought them down to 3.
Got it. So it was a mixture of 3 and 4 and now it's all 3.
It's not all 3. We have townhomes, so the western boundary is all 2-story townhomes with attached garage, 2 and 3 bedroom units. That's the northern boundary and the entire western boundary. That southern boundary is still the 3 stories, but that's where the grade runs down to a stream and then back up on the other side. So the directly adjacent units are all 2-story buildings. They essentially look like, or the size of them look like single family.
How did the conversation evolve where you at one time had 4-story components to this?
We did.
Was that a design, let's roll up our sleeves and see what we.
Yeah, because the grade on that northern boundary runs downhill, and we could put units running down the grade there, so that allowed us to essentially make a 4-story building.
With 220 units, I think you're personally gut feeling as an architect for a long time. I think you're pushing well beyond the appropriate. That's a big word. That's our Bible. We read by the word appropriate. I think you're past it, and you need to do something to bring it back to where it's a reasonable, appropriate fit, and then prove it. And it's not proven yet. And there's ways to do that. And you've got creative architects that can maybe throw some things and not just go to the flat flats and pull out your existing product and say, how about this? They may have to use a little ingenuity.
And I heavily recommend that you work with your area commission in your neighborhood. Right. You have to do that if you're gonna present that to us.
We have met, we've been
I
meeting
see
with.
that, you indicated 2 to 3 times. But I'm saying, you really need to work with your area commission, your area associations, that's vital before coming to us. That's just a recommendation.
Which is not to say, speaking only for myself here, that at least at a conceptual level, I'm sure we all understand some of the concerns you've brought to us about density, the need for increased number of units. And it may certainly well be that 2.3 dwelling units per acre in this area is not sustainable in the long run. But what you're talking about here is what, a 6 or 7-fold increase over that. There have to be some limits. And I'm sure there can be some kind of discussion. Wasn't planning for that, but okay. I'm sure there can be some kind of discussion. This is not to say that the Civic Association has anything resembling a veto power, but we'd like to see some good faith movement. Speaking only for myself, but I think.
Anybody else have a comment, Kay?
No, I think everybody has said it, what to be said, but the other one I would probably suggest, when I look at the sketch here, when you see that this is a 3-story building and then see the distance between that and the backyard of your neighbor, someone on a 3-story window looking down into somewhere that takes a little bit impressive. So there may be a need to restructure the volume and the height of your building if you are going to make it work.
Proximity creates an angle. and a few trees,
We have blocked it.
block it for a while.
Is that the one that you're talking about there on
Those are
the
two.
southern boundary? Those 3 stories, it runs down into a stream, wooded, then back up to the neighbors on that side, wooded. So it's not a 3-story building sitting next to a.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just, the transition from from 270 to Dublin Road and then Dublin Road to the river it's a transition. And that's what we're seeing there. In my view, this doesn't fit with that transition. I'm sympathetic to the need for housing, but that housing does need connectivity. We are at one of the lowest percentages in the state for home ownership. We're at 45% or less in Columbus. And I think we can do better.
The units you're referring to by 270, I mean, those sit adjacent to single-family homes as well. So is it because
I'm
there's?
looking at the transition from there to the river. And that transition is going down in density. Pretty consistent.
Yes. Now, for those that you don't know, Maria is a professor and longstanding at Ohio State in city planning, so she knows what she's talking about. Sean, we're at a point now where we can talk about this for the next 12 hours. It's not really making progress. I'm at a point where we either vote for this or we ask you if you want to table it and come back with a little more refined and a little more well illustrated how and why you're going to get this done and not just what you want. So the ball's in your court. If you want to have us vote on this right now, you're on the timetable, we'll vote. If you've got time to come back and give this thing some further thought, I think you've got a whole room full of people who live all around this are pretty articulately against it. I've heard opposition over a long number of years. This is as articulate a group that's come across. And a lot of what they're saying, I agree with as an architect and as a commissioner. So I think you know where my vote's going if we have to vote. I prefer to table you, like give you a chance to find a way to make progress and do this right. Maybe not as much, but do it right.
Well, we'll request a tabling.
Okay, now that means you're gonna have to have some further dialogue.
We've had a lot of that dialogue and a lot of it is focused on
There's one way.
not wanting.
It's one.
You know, back in the day, I had an office in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I was born. And they're giving away historical tax credits. So every developer, including some from Columbus, wanted to run down to Charleston and Seabrook Island and get 30 cents on the dollar to save an old building. It was really popular. And people got in over their head and found out they had a lot of obligations and it really wasn't where they wanted to go. But everybody that saw Jack Kessler go down there said, he must know what he's doing. Let's go down there. And when the word density starts dropping the way I hear it in the city of Columbus, it's like this magic Santa Claus that density is to be had for everybody, but only if it's done right. It's got to be harnessed so that it really works. And I think there's a lot of space between where it is now and where it should be in the fixes.
And I want to reiterate and largely agree with the chair's comments that I don't think I would vote in favor of this proposal now, but that's not a categorical forever no, in the sense that if there are adjustments substantially, I think I would recognize the need for some increased density. It's just a question of degree.
Agreed.
In transitional degree, You could have it heavier in one place and lighter in another. But it needs to go that next step of refinement, and I see the name on the title block of your architect, he's capable.
So when you talk about transition, you're.
You've already done
one place, not in the other.
Putting 2
It's,
stories.
we've
Yeah,
surrounded it.
you already started,
So
but
that's that.
you need to go further, in my opinion.
The city of Sandy Springs in Atlanta does some really interesting development. They have the Chattahoochee River that runs through the city. They also experience rapid density of what was like a 1970 single family community. And you can drive on 2-lane roads and see these really wonderful, beautiful, like 2- and 3-story townhomes that match with the style that's in the community that you can't really tell how dense they are. And they look really nice. They're made of natural materials. And that's kind of what I see as something that you could do here.
I think it can be accomplished.
Again, I would not be opposed to the development of this, but again, like everyone has said, the transition is really important. As well as the buy-in, not necessarily buy-in, but the opinions of the community as well.
Okay, I think it's time for, Sean, I take it that you requested to be tabled.
Yes.
All this, I need a motion to approve the table. In a section, motion. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, by voice vote, we want to take. Okay, you are in favor? We'll see you soon.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Michael Spurlock from the attorney. And if it is taken, then we can come back later. And we have an additional speaker. The reason I'm asking is I'm representing Tom Scout, who is a realtor broker. He's been in the area for over 50 years.